And good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to Going nuCLEar, full blown coverage of the land. I am Ethan Greenberg, and back with me is my co host, Mike Rasinski. Mike, how are you this afternoon or this evening, I should say?
Oh, doing good. Besides Guardians just concluding a 5-game losing streak. But other than that, I'm doing good. Had a
Oh,
nice trip to Philly and yeah.
yeah, way to bring us down, Mike. Way to bring us down. Well, talk to us a little bit. How was the trip to Philly? Your trip to the ballpark there. We talked before you went. I wanted you to make sure you had a good one, two, three cheesesteaks. Get some reviews on that. Where are we at on that?
Yeah, so good. So we'll start there. We actually I think we went 4 straight meals with having cheesesteaks. So legit, I learned the only real way to have a cheesesteak in Philadelphia is to have it with whiz, which means with
Ah,
cheese whiz, not with provolone. Even though provolone gives it a nice little texture, you got to have it with whiz.
okay,
The
okay.
place we were staying was about 3 blocks away from Pat's and Gino's, like the two competing
Yes,
cheesesteak places. So
yes.
we did Pat's first. It was great. I would say that was my second favorite though. I would go with Gino's, which was established in the 60s, not in the 30s like Pat's. And what put them over the top is they have been selling their Gino's hot sauce,
Oh,
and we
nice.
liked it so much we had to bring some home. I better wash my hands so I don't like touch my eyes after touching this hot sauce. It is extremely hot, and adding that nice little flair, I think puts them over the top with the Geno's hot sauce and with the whiz. That's what you go with. Geno's is the winner, although Pat's was also really good.
I
Um,
love it. I love it.
so that's the cheesesteaks. Citizens Bank Ballpark, beautiful ballpark. I didn't realize, I still consider it a new park. It's like celebrating its 20th anniversary now, so it's not
I had no
it's
idea.
not new anymore. But it is a beautiful ballpark. We were sitting up in the upper deck, and there is 3 miles south of the city, and you just have this great panorama of Philadelphia in the background. Of course, the game I went to, or the family and I went to, was the 7-0 game. So it wasn't a lot of fun to watch the game, but I enjoyed the park. So I've now hit 2 new parks this year I've never been to. Is Colorado and Citizens Bank now in Philadelphia. I will say I'll have to rate them. Uh, Denver's park, the Colorado Rockies park, number one. Philadelphia, number two, though. Just probably for the location. There's more downtown in Denver for Colorado's. You had the mountains in the background for that one. So both good parks, but that's where I stand.
Well, now, how do those parks would you rank them against at least the current iteration of Progressive Field?
Um, I'm a homer, so I like Progressive Field better, and I love what they're doing with it too. All the standing room options. Now, I did have to ask. I asked my kids what their favorite was, and they ranked the parks based off the kids' play areas. They
Okay.
go Citizens Bank number one because they had a climbing wall, a wiffle ball area, a fast pitch machine, and a hot dog shooting gun that the kids could do. Progressive Field's number two because they have a little wiffle ball area, and then disappointing number three was in Colorado.
Okay. Okay. Well, you talked about stadiums, and I know we've got a lot to cover here, but this afternoon, and this was already on the list of things to discuss this evening. Um, a memo came out last week from the city of Cleveland, from Mayor Bibb, a proposal about uh, a renovation on the lakefront of Brown Stadium and all the different things, financing, et cetera, that they were proposing. Well, this afternoon, the Browns put out a letter and pictures and a video in response to that. And although there is no final decision made, all signs are pointing toward Brook Park. It's possible that Cleveland, the mayor, the city council could come up with something, but it seems highly unlikely that they would be able to match what the Haslams are looking to do in Brook Park. So let me see here if I can get this to work properly. And if so, we will watch that video and then we can talk about it, react here together. Wow. I was uh, thoroughly impressed by the presentation. I guess that they did their job there because um, saw a lot of really cool things. What was your first reaction when you saw the presentation? Because we've talked about the stadium before.
Yeah, so you're right. Like, it's hard not to get a little pumped up after you see that. I think my favorite part was my initial reaction was confusion after like the first 30 seconds because they were showing all these shots of downtown Cleveland. I'm like, are they showing the places the stadium's not going to be? Because it's not anywhere near anything they just showed. But setting that aside, yeah, I mean, it looks it looks beautiful, and I love how they showed all the other things that can be that the stadium can be used for besides just football, because right now you have this it'd be $1 billion investment to fix up the old stadium to be
Right.
used for nine-ish events a year, where if you invest a little more money you're going to get a lot more out of that. So I thought that was a
Right.
nice aspect of what they showed. What about you?
Oh, I mean, just it knocked my socks off. It got me pumped. Um, I think, like you mentioned, it shows the versatility. It's not just about the Browns games. It's about the Browns. It's about getting a men's NCAA Final Four. What about if suddenly the Big Ten decides to play the Big Ten championship game there? What about more? They just had SummerSlam.
Hmm.
There could be a WrestleMania. You probably you'd almost certainly get at least one Super Bowl, maybe another down the road. I mean, Detroit got a Super Bowl at Ford Field, and Minnesota got one at their new stadium, which is the same designers, the same architects who designed or are working on this project for the Browns. And um, I loved all the architectural aspects. I like the fact that there's so much more to it than just the football. It can be so much more versatile, and even the outdoor space. There's lots
Hmm.
of there's lots of parking there. There's places to do outdoor concerts that appear. That just a lot of stuff like that. And I know that it's going to impact businesses in downtown Cleveland that rely on those 8 or 9 dates a year from the Browns. But I would hope, and I think this was part of the statements that I read in the letter from the Browns. They still plan to work with the city of Cleveland to develop the downtown waterfront area. I don't know if that's going to result in enough foot traffic and enough business down there, because when it's cold as all get out, who's going down there?
Yeah. Now, have you seen Mayor Bibb's proposal for their downtown or their North Shore redevelopment that they just released earlier this week as well? That is a proposal that includes the $1 billion for the
Right.
Browns renovation, but also includes the land bridge to get there. It includes all the other amenities they want to do to make a like a public beach up there. Um, I don't know. So have you seen that proposal
I
too?
I did see it. It wasn't near as impressive as this. I'll tell you what. Uh, but yeah, I saw it, and ultimately, I was still not wowed. I just wasn't, because it doesn't solve for the major issues that we have down there. I looked at their proposal when it came out last week, and my my perspective is that Mayor Bibb had to put something out. The city of Cleveland had to put something out, and they also had to make it look like a good faith effort. That, hey, we're putting this out, and part of their plan or the way that they were looking to pay for it won't necessarily, if I read it correctly or understood it correctly, and if you know otherwise, tell me, was in a way that it won't result in additional money coming from the taxpayers or out of funds, certain types of funds. But other than that, I think that has the Haslams would be better off if they can make it work to move out to Brook Park, because they're going to get so much more for their value for their money.
Yeah, you can tell the Haslams, even though they're saying we're studying both options and we're open to both, you can tell they want the dome. And you can understand why, because they would own all the development around the stadium too, which just means more money for them. And they're only gonna have to pay for half the stadium because the state and the county and the city are gonna pick up the rest of the bill. But from a fan's perspective, I also prefer the dome for everything you just mentioned, for the amenities, for getting there makes it easier. I think RTA is going to have a line that goes out there for all the other entertainment venues that you can have out there. But in addition, I would rather have a renovated North Shore in Cleveland that doesn't have the stadium, where you can use that land for something else, some other recreational thing. Because in the other, you know, 350 whatever days that stadium's not used, it's just going to be sitting there taking up space. So you might as well get rid of it. Get rid of Burke Lakefront Airport
Yes,
while you're
yes.
at it. Make that another place that you can put up condos and beaches and stuff. And that goes to the Cleveland's shore to corridor shore plan, because they're also redeveloping the Cuyahoga River just south of I'll just say Gundarina and the Jake.
Right.
Um, I don't know how they're going to pay for all that, but I think that is something Cleveland desperately needs. I mean, is prime real estate, and if you can make those some beautiful areas that people want to hang out with, I don't think anybody's gonna miss Cleveland Browns Stadium. And I
Exactly.
think hopefully, like to your point, it would make up for some of the lost revenue that those businesses would see. That you're just gonna have general foot traffic there 365 days out of the year.
Exactly. So that's where you really have to start thinking outside the box. Look at so one, Chicago. Let's look at, what is it? The Navy Pier, is that on Lake Michigan?
Mm-hmm. It
Am I
is.
getting that correct? I mean, that's amazing out there. And I know Chicago's different than Cleveland, but just to kind of point out, I mean, it's built up. It's a beautiful. It's just gorgeous. So why couldn't, it be that way, there on Lake Erie? Um, downtown Cleveland, where they have built up on the east bank of the flats, where the ESPN Cleveland studios are at. They built a high rise. They've got living spaces up there, bars, and so on. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's great, and it's a good place to go, um, because you can walk down there if you live down there. It's just excellent. So I think there's opportunities. I'm not saying that, I don't value the opinions of the people who have businesses down there. I'm not saying that I don't value the fact that, like, whatever tax revenues they might get from, the stadium being there and people bringing in that business, employees working down there. I know there's all those kinds of intricacies, but the point, my feeling is that in general, there's just a greater good that would be done if the stadium were able to be moved out to Brook Park and the Haslams are able to build what they want to build. My one of my biggest things is that when we talk, and this is what you and I talked about a number of weeks ago or months ago about, open air stadium versus a dome. And when I was younger, I wouldn't have cared about going in the cold. But now, as I look at it, if I'm planning, especially from being with us living out of state, if I'm planning to go to a game and I'm planning on taking my son or my kids, or you're planning on taking your kids, I don't want it to be a terrible weather day, and I'm not gonna go and get tickets on the day of at the box office. I gotta buy ahead, and I've gotta plan ahead. So if it's in a dome, I'm not concerned about the weather, and if I wanna go to a game in December, I as long as I can get there, I'm gonna go to the game, and I'm not gonna be worried about that. I know it's probably gonna be very expensive. There'll be sticker shock, I'm sure.
Especially for that those first few years. It'll be like when Jacobs Field, first opened, and
Absolutely.
you couldn't get tickets for the first like 8 years that place was open. It'll be the same. And you can't even get tickets to old Cleveland, Cleveland Brown Stadium right now. Um, but yeah, to your point, I think like the old Ice Bowl and memories have of these awesome games in the snow, and they are like I love those games. But you're talking about maybe one game every 3 years that you get a truly good like snow game. And
Right.
now with the technology they have where they like have heated fields and they melt the snow anyways, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And so you're never going to get that again, which I think is what people really miss and really want because football is an outdoor sport. And I mean, we just got to admit, it's trending to domes. All the northern cities are, if they're building a new stadium, except for Buffalo, you're getting a dome. And I guess New York as well, because they just built theirs, a
Right.
decade ago or
Online.
so.
Yep.
So I think we just have to accept it. And it's not worth the one or two awesome snow games you're going to get to miss out on everything else. I know the price tag doubles if you're going to build a dome,
Right.
but the investment pays off because of all the other events you can host in something like that.
Exactly, and furthermore, the renovation project and the budget for that, they're talking about that being like some sort of a 30-year plan. There's no way, from what I've read, that building is not going to make it another 30 years.
Yeah.
It was built quickly so that the Browns could get a football team back, and that's a whole other thing that we could go, paths we could go down about the screw job we got, from the NFL and Art Modell. But we'll leave that be. So it's tough. It's really difficult. But that's exciting. That is really exciting, and that kind of leads us into what's going on with the Browns. The rumors are swirling. We've had our Hall of Fame game that got shortened by rain and storms down again. That's kind of crazy. Um,
You wouldn't have that in a dome.
no, you wouldn't. And think about, the game against Cincinnati last year, the opener, terrible weather, terrible rain. And not only, no, it didn't cancel the game. It didn't, but that, really can impact the game. And while, yes, for a football purist, you might be like, "Oh, right, yeah, yeah, we're out here and it's in the elements and roar." It's like, well, you know what? When your guy fumbles a stupid ball away because the rain, or you kick it and the wind shear, pushes it far left or something, you're going to be pretty ticked off when that's the difference between making the playoffs and not making the playoffs. So, you know, you got that going for you there. Um, so this weekend The Browns open up their preseason, and they will take on the Green Bay Packers. So the Green Bay Packers are going to play some of their starters, and I believe of those, I'm pretty certain that that includes Jordan Love, who just got a big payday. The Browns announced, Stefanski announced the other day, we're going to play some starters, about 10 plays, will not play Watson. And so I'm thinking about it. I'm going, I don't know, hemming and hawing about it. And then I see that the Chiefs, for their preseason opener, will be playing their starters about a quarter, including Patrick Mahomes. So tell me this, Mike, and give me your opinion. Why is it that the defending Super Bowl champs, it's good enough for them to play their starters, yet for some reason the Browns, who are running a new offense with a quarterback who's played 12 games in over the course of 3 seasons, shouldn't be playing? Now, I understand. I will admit he's coming off of the season-ending surgery, and our left tackle situation, even to an extent, our right tackle situation, not great. So I take those things into consideration, but I got some question marks about this. What do you think?
So I think I'm gonna go in the opposite direction,
All right.
and I am okay without them playing their starters. I don't know why Kansas City's doing it. You know, their team's been together forever. You think they know how to play with each other. So
Right.
obviously the answer that they'll tell you is injuries. You don't want to get injured in the preseason.
Right.
And what benefit does preseason get you? So like high school football, college football, they don't have preseasons unless you count the Big Ten playing the MAC or something like that.
Yep.
But those games actually count on the schedule, so they're
Right.
gonna, count in the standings. So they're still gonna play to win those games. The I think you can get ready without playing preseason games. These guys are professionals. And what does playing a quarter or 10 plays get you, anyways? Is that really going to make the difference and make you ready for week one? Unless or just practicing more would also make you ready for week one. So I don't think the injury situation. I I think the risk of that outweighs the benefit of what you'd get for just playing 10 plays or one quarter. And the other benefit is you get more chance to see these bottom of the roster guys that you have to make a decision about. Are we going to keep them? Are we going to cut them? And that is better competition for them to see if, as a talent evaluator for the Browns or for any team, to see if you want to keep them. So I'm okay with this. They've already cut the preseason down from 4 games to 3 games. So the players, I think, are okay with it too. But I take it you're on the other side of this.
Here's what I'm struggling with it. I'm struggling with it, Mike. I would actually say if I were a Kansas City fan, I'd be like, nope. I don't want my Hall of Fame, future Hall of Fame MVP quarterback out there potentially getting injured. You know, I don't want anything to do with that. But for the Browns, I look at it and I just think and worry that because of the way that the Players Association, the NFL have coordinated what you can do during practices, that they're not going to be necessarily up to game speed. That's my concern. And especially given the fact that we are now running a different style of offense, in theory, we don't know how exactly it's going to look compared to what it's been in the years past, but we know that Ken Dorsey is going to have a major fingerprint on it, even if Stefanski is calling the plays, which I know surprised a lot of people. Including myself and the major media in the area were all kind of shocked and taken aback that, in fact, Stefanski was going to keep the play calling duties. Heck, it sounded like Ken Dorsey was kind of surprised by that. But that's my concern. I'm with you on the injuries. It's just I want them to be ready. I do not want to see Deshaun Watson coming out in the first week and being like, "Oh, it's rust." it's rust and not being able to play well. I know that. So let's look forward then at what opportunities these guys are going to have meaningful practice time and ability to work on the offense against competition. They are going to have joint practices next week with the Vikings, so they will not play in the second preseason game. Um, in a quote from Stefanski, I believe it was Tony Grossi or Tony Rizzo this morning, said he listened to what Stefanski said and dissected it and said, "Oh, something he said made him feel like Watson could or will play possibly, I guess, in that third preseason game at Seattle, which is just crazy. And I'm not happy with the NFL for doing that. I don't think the Browns are either.
Yeah.
So I understand the risk versus reward. You're darned if you do, and you're darned if you don't. Um, it's just one of those things that I've heard enough excuses.
Mm-hmm. Do we know, are the Cowboys playing any of their starters in their preseason, or will we at least have an even preparation for that game one?
I don't know. I try to avoid all Cowboys news. Maybe I would focus on it that week of. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make Jacob our Cowboys scout, and so that he can follow all of these things for us and keep us in the loop and updated on that. I mean, I know they've got some drama there with CeeDee Lamb. And speaking of drama and wide receivers, so have you been able to keep up with all of this Brandon Ayuk drama llama stuff from San Francisco? What have you heard, and what have your thoughts been as the past couple days have gone by?
Yeah, so as I understand the situation, I've been trying to keep up on it. He is still showing up to practices, but he will not practice as kind of a hold in because he's still on the fifth year of his rookie deal and he wants to get like $30 million like every receiver does now. So he's holding out. He has been allowed to seek a trade, and his agents have tentatively reached deals with the Browns. It was the Browns, the Patriots, the Steelers, and the Commanders, although I think the Commanders are out of it now.
Right.
That the 49ers would accept a trade deal, and then the new team would have to sign him to an extension and pay him $30 million a year or so. Rumors are going that part of the Browns trade package would be Amari Cooper going to the 49ers, which makes things very interesting. And then we would get, Ayuk, and we might have to give up a second round pick, I think is the latest I heard as well. So my initial thoughts, I don't like it. I understand why the Browns are doing it. He is a younger version of Amari Cooper, essentially. They have very similar stats, but I think he is 26 and Cooper's 30. And we
Yes.
know normally receivers, after they hit 30, 31, their production drops off. So this would ensure that we, remain competitive, have that receiver, along with Jerry Jeudy now, we'd have this core of receivers for the next few years. But does this just bring more drama to the Browns? We're going to bring in a guy who's already holding out after his fifth year.
Right.
Does that even matter? I don't know. Personally, I don't like it. I know Cooper also held out for a bit, but it sounds like that was very amiable and there was no bitterness on either side. I like Cooper. I would like us to be faithful to him, I guess, is where I'm landed. I don't really want to give up another draft pick after giving
Right.
up 3 first rounders. So I am, it'd be nice to have that talent and have that talent locked up for a while because I don't really care what we pay players. It's not my money, but I just this feels like the Watson deal to me, and I didn't like that at the time either.
Right. No. So all right. So to kind of jump on to where my understanding of things are at is this. So originally we were talking about, like you said, the Commanders, the Steelers, the Browns, the Patriots. Well, then as of yesterday, they said that the 49ers had agreed to some basically agreed in principle with the Browns and the Patriots. Then late last night, the Patriots are like, I'm out. They gave him the Costanza. They said, "I'm out," right? And so then you're thinking, okay, well, who else is left? It's just the Browns. Then you got Kimberly Martin on, they're playing her quote or whatever comment on Get Up this morning on ESPN. He does not want to play for the Browns. And I took offense to that because I'm like, I'm sick of the national media haunts. All right. I'm sick of the Cleveland hate, whatever it is. And and it appears from everything that we're reading that's being said, Ayuk has some kind of infatuation with the Steelers. I don't know why, because you're looking at an older, beat up Russell Wilson and a Justin Fields who at times can be explosive but is inconsistent. I, I'm not sure I like that. I didn't think so much of Artie Smith, their new offensive coordinator, as a play caller, as a play designer. I didn't think he did that great in Atlanta, quite frankly. So then it was all coming around, and they were making it sound like there was something in place with the Steelers. Well, Jerry Dulac posted on Twitter. He covers the Steelers, and what he said was this: there is no verbal agreement with the 49ers for IU. They were not in the process of hammering out final details. And then he adds, any potential deal would not involve the Steelers giving up a player. So I guess there's a couple things. One, I agree with you. I don't necessarily like the drama, and I don't want to bring a malcontent into our locker room. And I don't want to give up a good leader room, a veteran presence in Cooper. Two, on the other hand, I really don't want to see him go to the Steelers. Yeah, it's kind of like that double whammy where, you're not only, you're improving your team, but then you're also, by taking away from a division opponent or whatever.
Yep.
It feels kind of like that. So I think in a perfect world, nothing gets worked out in Pittsburgh and he stays in San Francisco. What do you think? Good idea or what?
I would love that. I think that's great. Or send him to the Patriots, whatever. That's fine too. I don't care. Yeah, I'm with you. The only thing would be is if it turned out like the Watson deal for us and Houston, where Houston actually got better by trading Watson. Maybe Pittsburgh would actually get worse by getting Ayuk because they're giving up some draft picks and stuff that would make them better in the long term. Maybe it'd be a short-term gain and a long-term loss for them, depending on. But you never know how these things are going to turn out.
No, you don't. And I don't know that that the wide receiver market is as expensive as the quarterback market. It's just not. So I don't think they'd have to give up near as much draft capital for it. And I don't think they've got. I don't know what their salary situation is, but as far as I know, they don't have near as many high-priced players, such as like the Browns do. But I could be wrong. But because I don't care, because I don't pay attention to the Steelers.
Nor should you.
Exactly. So I don't know. This whole thing, the drama, that's crazy. At least it makes for good fodder. It makes for some good discussions here to try and figure out what would be best, worst, etc. For our Cleveland Browns. I am going to be curious to see how they look this weekend, who shines, and if the defense shows up and shows out. It'll be very interesting to see if Jordan Love continues on an upwards trajectory now that Green Bay has paid him a boatload.
Yeah. What is he, the second highest paid quarterback now without really having proven anything?
Yeah.
That's an interesting decision.
It certainly is. It certainly is. But I guess if Green Bay is going based upon, and their track record of, the Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers transition, the Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love transition, that's what I guess they're banking on.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, I think Ayuk is a great receiver. He certainly put up some really good numbers, and he wasn't even like the main guy in the offense in San Fran, and he had his best year last year, 1,342 yards receiving, 17.9 yards per catch, 7 touchdowns. So he had a lot going for him there, but we shall see what happens here in the coming days and what happens in the Browns preseason opener this weekend.
Let me make this prediction. Jordan Love, new contract, gets hurt. Week 1 preseason is out for the year.
Whoa, dude. That
I never wish injuries on anybody, but that could settle our debate on it, whether preseason's good or not for you.
all right. I don't know if I would wish that upon him just to get that right, but all right, all right. No, that would be horrific for the Packers, of course, to have that happen. I'd prefer to see that happen to one of our AFC rivals.
Right.
Maybe that
Not
would.
that we wish injuries on anybody.
No. It's kind of like, have you ever heard the discussion of like, well, when you say and you're talking about sports, oh, I hate this person. It's like sports hate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hear you, my man. Well, all right, we gotta move down the road, from the lakefront, and we got to talk about in the world what in the world is going on down at the corner of Carnegie and Ontario. The Gardos are sputtering a little bit. You went to Philadelphia. The Guardians came in there and they had kind of been on the struggle bus, but they take the series from Philadelphia, come home, take the first two from Baltimore, and you're like, all right, here we go.
And 1-2 against Detroit in between.
Right. We're on a 5-game winning streak. And you're like, okay, things are starting to click again. And then they lose the last two to Baltimore. First of all, Saturday night turned into a debacle and the armchair quarterbacks. Oh, you threw on the towel. Oh, I can't believe you did that. How'd you let that game go? Now every game counts. You threw in the towel. I didn't get that impression.
No, I didn't either.
I don't understand, man. That just drives me bonkers. And now the Guardians are on their longest losing streak of the season. They lose a doubleheader today. They get swept by the Diamondbacks. Not a bad team. Not a bad team. Now they're 11 games over 500. But certainly this is not indicative of how the Guardians have played at home all season. They have hit a bit of a wall here, losers of 5 straight. And Minnesota, thankfully, has lost a couple in a row. The lead over Minnesota should be 3.5, and Kansas City then should be 4.5. But I'm certain that the Royals will play later here. And now the Guardians have to go to Minnesota with a doubleheader starting on Friday. So they have coming up here. Let's take a look as we head to the Twin Cities. They have got a 4-game set with Minnesota, and that's going to be a huge series. I don't know, Mike, what have you seen, and is this something that they can get past?
Yeah, the most disappointing part of all of this has been the bullpen, which has been the strength of the team, because the offense hasn't been doing that bad. I remember going into the All-Star break and right afterwards, we had been shut out like 4 out of 10 games or something like that. We're like, what happened to the offense? Well, the offense has come back now. We're scoring 5 runs a game, over our last 10 games or so, but our bullpen can't hold a lead. Now, that's only remarkable because we're used to them holding every lead,
Right.
and this has been a blip. It's been about 3 games or so recently that they've given up a lead that we've had. So hopefully that's not a trend and it's just a blip. After starting with the Phillies series, the Guards before they started their 5-game losing streak, they were 9-5 coming out of the out of the All-Star break or after that, and then they lost the 5 in a row. So now they're 9-10 over their last 19 games. So that kind of skews it, but they're playing really well. Um, and they're playing really well at a time when we were coming back for a home stand and we had the best home record in all of baseball, and that's where we lose our 5 games. We're all at home, which hurts a little bit as well. The one thing that I'm hopeful for is the starting pitching. Because we're gonna get to see Cobb this weekend. Actually, we're going to see him Friday. We don't know if he'll play for,
He is scheduled to start on Friday at the with the first part of the doubleheader, 2:10 first pitch. So I guess that must be it must be 2:10 Eastern, 1:10 Central since they're in Minnesota. But anyway, he pitches game 1 of the 4-game set, and the only other pitcher listed for the series is Gavin Williams.
Okay. So, and that leads us, the reason we don't have any other pitchers listed is because Bybee's hurting a little bit too. That's concerning. On the flip side, I think Logan Allen did a great job the other day after he, 2 home runs to start the game, and then he locked it down after getting hit by a pitch on a comebacker. McKenzie seems like he's trending better down in AAA. We've got Boyd that will be coming here soon. We got Cobb to evaluate, so we're going to have some options. I do think this series in Minnesota is going to be huge. We're 5-0 against Minnesota right now. And can you imagine if we were 2-3 against Minnesota? What would we be, a game and a half ahead of them instead of 3.5? If we lose 3 of these games, that's going to be a marker. We at least need to split. At
I
least
agree.
need to split. And that can change our whole outlook of what we think and how
Exactly.
how they're going.
Exactly. And so I think that ideally you get at least a split. And but we've got to see more out of this pitching. This 5-inning malarkey and giving up home runs in the first inning every stinking game is ticking me off. Why can't we manage to put these guys away early? Why is it that opposing pitchers who we've never heard of are causing so much trouble for our lineup, and they zip through? The guy was perfect through 3 innings in the first game of the doubleheader. It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. He even struck out Quan twice. It was crazy. But to your point, Alex Cobb to start on Friday, and if he can show some semblance of what he has been in the past, he could provide a little bit of stability to the pitching staff and give us an opportunity to maybe rest our bullpen. I mean, we've got to get some leads where it's comfortable and we're not stressing out. Matthew Boyd, he pitched today in Columbus, if you weren't aware. He went 6 innings, gave up just 1 hit, retired the first 17 hitters, 7 strikeouts and 63 pitches in 6 innings. That's what we need.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
absolutely have to have that from our starting pitching. And Tristan McKenzie, he had a great outing recently in Columbus, 11 strikeouts. And I believe he gave up 4 hits, no earned runs, if I recall correctly. But I don't know if he has pitched again since then. Yeah, let's see here if I've got some notes. Yeah, he went 6 innings, gave up 4 hits, 0 runs, 3 walks, 11 strikeouts. If we could get him back to some semblance of himself, that would be amazing. I just think that we have been so fortunate and in a way spoiled all season long with this surprising team and their ability to avoid these losing streaks that now it's more stressful.
It is. And I guess to your point too, who would have thought before today the Guardians on August 6th would have had the best record in baseball? Like, I guess taking the big picture, I mean, that's pretty amazing.
It
Now,
really is.
looking forward too, they have a tough road ahead, and that's where this is going to be interesting too, because besides the Twins, who obviously are a good team, we're going to play the Cubs, not the greatest team, but then we have a Milwaukee, New York, Texas hasn't been doing so great this year, but then we have Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Kansas City again, the Dodgers, before we finally hit the White Sox, who we can't beat anyways. So none of those are going to be easy. So if we can get that Los Angeles series ends September 8th, so a month from today, we have all these tough teams with maybe Texas and the Cubs being the only break. We'll see. That's really going to define the season right there, I think, and that can make the AL Central real interesting, especially with the games against KC and Minnesota that we have in that stretch.
I am counting, I think 29 games. If my math is right here between now, in the next month. I mean, we don't have many off days, and there's a lot of baseball to be played. So the Guardians are going to have to buckle up. Buckle up, folks. Get ready and try not to stress out too much. And I think that I've got to stay away from because the Guardians play so often. I have to stay away from social media during that time because there's just far too much negativity, too many days a week. Like for the Browns, you can kind of handle it because it's all compartmentalized into one day a week of frustration. And so I don't know, but this is really going to be difficult. And I know people are calling for adjustments to the lineup. They'd like to see some different guys called up. They're talking about Manzardo for one. And I'm trying to think who the other person is. Maybe I know they've talked about Valera as well. I don't know that any of these guys are going to be the magic elixir.
Yeah. And I like the acquisition of, speaking of new guys, like Lane Thomas too in right field. He started out real strong, then he went into like an 0 for 21 slump before today. But I would have loved to seen some more Big Christmas, and that's
Yeah.
taken up some of his playing time, unfortunately. I
Although
do like.
he's terrible in the field, though.
Well,
He's
yeah,
he's
but
he's the you know what? He's like that bad gift that you get. It's like I don't know. It's a gift for everybody because for as many home runs as he hits, he gives up the same number of runs or more when he makes a blunder in the field. It's a win-win.
I think you're focusing on like the one play where he ran in on the ball and it went over his head and he
I think there's
slipped
at
and it
least
was.
two. I think there's been at least two. He's got learning to do. I like his
Yeah.
potential, but he's got learning to do, and we can't afford to lose games, because of blunders in the outfield. So they've got to be selective there, and it makes it a little bit difficult. I don't know. Let me query you this, Mike, because you're a baseball guy. So this afternoon, game one of the doubleheader. Every time Ramirez came up, in as much as the shift is you can't do the shift now, and they've modified all the rules. The third baseman was standing next to the shortstop, and they were practically at second base. Lay a bunt down.
Yes, the fundamentals, please. I'm with you. Please.
Why would you not do that? You make them pay.
Yes.
Get
and
on base.
then you get them to shift over, and then you take advantage of your
Exactly.
swing. It's almost like why in the extra inning game that we lost 2 days ago, they scored a run without registering a hit. Why didn't we do the same thing?
Exactly.
Lane Thomas is apparently the fastest guy on the team, and we didn't have him trying to sacrifice bunt Quan over, and he may have been able to beat that out. I don't understand why we tried to let him hit. Our guys struck out after him anyway, so it probably wouldn't have mattered. But I wish we would get more to that fundamental baseball that I think we used to do earlier in the season that we're, kind of getting out of it.
And they've stopped running.
You're right.
They aren't being nearly as aggressive on the base paths as they were early on. Maybe it's an over adjustment by vote.
Yeah.
I'm really not sure, but the bottom line is we got a tough road ahead. They've got to take care of business starting here with Minnesota this weekend. I think if you can do some damage there, if you can take 3 of 4, that puts 2 more games on the lead. That would make it 5.5. And that gives you a little bit more breathing room. but it's no worse than a split here. It would be nice to see Cobb have a good performance, and would love to see. I think the goal is to get Bobby back on the mound this weekend. If you have a chance, and I know you're not on as much in the social media, but it might have even been recorded yesterday when they had the rain out. Andre Knott was in the dugout talking with Carl Willis, and it was some very insightful stuff from Carl Willis, the pitching coach, about the pitching staff and what they're doing and how they're doing it. He was talking about Gavin Williams and so on and so forth. So, uh, great insight there. Wonderful job by Andre Knott. And so, if you have a chance to take a listen at that, that would be good. Moving on to the team that's just down the street from the corner of Carnegie in Ontario, the Cavs. It's still the off season. Not much is going on. But since we last met, the Cavs out of nowhere. Did you expect this? All of a sudden, Jared Allen gets an extension.
Yeah, I love it. But no, I was not. I was not expecting that at all.
I mean, that is a fantastic move right there. And from what I heard, it doesn't necessarily mean that they couldn't trade him. It's not an exorbitant contract such that no one would want him. And then there's still possibility of moving pieces. But to me, and something, just my interpretation and some things I've read, this kind of points toward the front office possibly feeling that the issue wasn't the roster, it was maybe the coach. Not necessarily the coach as in JB himself and what he was doing or trying to do, but maybe the message was getting lost. Maybe he had lost that, the players for what it's worth, and they just weren't, playing for him anymore. I don't know. I'm not in there, but it seems to point like that. And I also read something that essentially Kenny Atkinson kind of sold the idea that he could get more out of these guys. And that might be why they're keeping them all together.
Yeah, I want to see this core grow together as well. There's something to be said that this team's just going to improve because these are all young players. They're still going through learning spurts and the learning curve of playing in the NBA, even though it seems like they've been there forever. So just the fact that they'll have more seasons under their belt, the fact that they'll have those seasons under their belt together so they can learn each other's tendencies and play better together. I mean, it's like the Heat when they had their big three when LeBron went there with Bosch and Wade. It took them a little while to gel, and these were experienced players. So I think we're going to get better just by the fact that these guys are getting older, that they're playing together, and it doesn't hurt that maybe we have a new voice in the locker room too. So I'm excited to know that these guys will be locked up for at least the next 3 years.
Right.
And the salary cap's only going to go up every year too. So these contracts will look better as time goes on.
Exactly. And if you and I was thinking about it, and if you look at it, the only three of the four, so Mitchell, Garland, and Allen are all stars. Now, granted, Allen and Garland made it the 1 year in Cleveland, but Mitchell's going to be an all-star every year, and Mobley's right on the cusp.
Yep.
So in theory, how many teams have 4 all-stars? Not
I don't off the top of my head, I can't think of any.
right.
I don't know.
So if you look at it, you're like, wow, we got 4 all-stars. That's an amazing roster. I mean, we look back to our days, back in the day, having 3 all-stars in Nance, Doherty, and Price. It's an amazing core. They've got an opportunity here. It will be very interesting to see what Kenny Atkinson can get out of them. I love what Donovan reacted with, like, the fire emoji and stuff like that for the Brown Stadium and everything. I'm loving him. I'm
Oh,
loving.
that's awesome.
Yeah, he has been very, he's really done a good job of becoming a part of the Cleveland community. Really love
Yeah.
that. So that is some good stuff. And did you see Luke Travers got permission. He has been released from his Australian team, Melbourne United, so he could join the Cavs on a standard or a two-way contract now.
So what's your opinion? Where would you like to see him? Knowing that, we only have two-way contracts, and we have Bates, and who else do we usually have on the two-way? The other
Oh,
Mobley.
yeah, and I would if it were a choice between Bates and Isaiah, I don't think Isaiah is on. For some reason, I don't know if we still kept Isaiah Mobley, to be
Oh,
honest.
really? Okay.
I mean, and we did have Pete Nance, kind
Yep.
of going two ways. But I would love to see Travers have an opportunity. He's played on the summer league team for 3 seasons, averaged 7.4 points a game, 5.3 boards, just over a steal, and almost a block and a half per game. He's 6'7", so
And
that's a wing player.
the team does pretty good with an Australian on it.
They do. He and Delhi, man, they're getting some Vegemite sandwiches.
That's right. He's got to love the interviews with him after the game.
Well, he and Bazana.
Yeah, there we go. Cleveland can be the Australian destination for professional athletes.
I think so. So that is some interesting news. And of course, we've got a little ways to go before we get to NBA season. Buckeyes football around the corner. I don't know. I think I was telling you, I've been playing the NCAA college football with my son, and that's always fun. So I'm getting a little bit into it, a little bit excited for it. Will Howard, I started looking at his numbers, and he's got, I mean, I would say this. Compared to last year, he doesn't have big shoes to fill because Kyle McCord was only meh. But he comes out of his best season at Kansas State, 4 years at Kansas State. Last year, 61.3% completion percentage, 2,600 yards, 24 TDs, 10 picks. I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And I know that's in the Big 12, but I like the at least he's got the experience.
Yeah, so my wife is a Kansas State alum, so we actually follow Kansas State in the Rasinski household. So it was fun watching him last year. They actually replaced him with their own freshman who was, I can't remember his name, but he was one of these like two-way players who's super exciting. So I think that's why he left. He was getting frustrated that he was losing playing time to an underclassman. But he looked solid in his time with K-State. I was surprised that he actually left one big school to go to another, but I guess that's the name of the game now in college football. But I think it's going to be an upgrade over McCord, to tell you the truth. So
And
there's a lot
Keenholz.
to be excited for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I mean, we've got some fantastic, the Buckeyes, the wide receiver room is loaded once again. I'm loving, just the guys that are returning, the guys that are freshmen. It's going to be fantastic. So the bar again is going to be set very high for them. And now with playoff expansion, you're almost guaranteed to get in that unless you really blunder. But Ohio State, I think that obviously their biggest games on the schedule. I mean, traveling to Oregon in October is going to be very difficult. Because Oregon's tough place to play. They've got Dylan Gabriel, who transferred from Oklahoma. That guy, I don't know. That seems to be kind of flaky because he went from UCF to Oklahoma to now out to Oregon. I'm not so sure about him. Penn State is always a challenge, but of course, Penn State and James Franklin can't get out of their own way sometimes. And that kind of brings us around to the other kind of big news that came out this week. Michigan. So, yeah, and the story so first of all, there's the leaked story about the sign stealing issues. But also it came out the penalties from the NCAA for the recruiting or the violations during the COVID-19 period. And, they said that they failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance And I guess this is about Harbaugh, and he violated head coach responsibility obligations. Another quote: Harbaugh engaged in unethical conduct and failed to cooperate when he denied any involvement in impermissible recruiting contacts, despite substantial information to the contrary. And furthermore, they could be deemed, now that they've got this, when it comes to the sign stealing, they could be found to be a repeat offender. And so Harbaugh's punishment, it doesn't really affect him because he left. He's like, I'm getting out of town. I'm heading for the hills.
I can't figure out why he would have left Michigan last year. Why is that? That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I have no idea. No idea.
Yeah.
No, and he leaves and goes to the Chargers. And then he comes out for the Chargers, and he issues that they ask him about. He's like, I don't lie, cheat, or steal. What a load of crap. What a load of garbage. Liar, liar, pants on fire. That is horrible. So I'm just thinking, like, I don't know what's going to happen to Michigan um, with this other piece of the puzzle, if there's going to be any further punishment. And actually, I had an opportunity on Monday, Mike, to jump on a podcast with our friend Taven, who was here, and I jumped on a podcast with him and another fella. Uh, we were Nate, and we were talking about baseball, and we were talking about all the Guardians farm teams and everything of that nature. But Nate, although he doesn't go to Ohio State, is a big Ohio State fan. So we got into the whole discussion. And one of the things we were talking about is, what could or should a reasonable penalty be if the NCAA finds that in fact all these things happened with the sign stealing? Does it do any good to vacate wins?
At this point, no. It really doesn't. Yeah. I mean, what a stupid penalty, or what a stupid infraction too. Like, the team was good enough to win anyways. Like, why did you have to even do this sign stealing thing? But no, probably not at this point. No.
Right. And it's one of those things where I don't think that it's for Harbaugh to say he didn't know what was going on. That's ludicrous.
Yeah. I
You
totally agree. And then to double down on it with the
but
Chargers is even worse.
Yeah, but I guess that's the new playbook, Mike. You deny, you deflect, whatever it is, and I guess that's what he's going to go with. And okay, all right, you
Yep.
want to go there, you go with that. So that is all very interesting, and we will have to wait to see how that all plays out. Further, I should say this, and so he gets a 4-year show cause order. And that means if he were to leave the Chargers suddenly, go back to the NCAA, whatever institute, if they hire him, would have to suspend him for the first full year, and after that would be barred from athletics-related activities, which include team travel, practice, video study, recruiting, and team meetings until the 4 years is up, which is August 6th, 2028. So he's probably in Los Angeles for the next 4 years. But he said, I do not apologize when asked about it. He said, I did not participate. I was not aware nor complicit in those said allegations. I did not lie, steal, or cheat. Well,
Yeah.
you just lied again, and you stole wins, and you cheated. You did all those things. So shut up.
Usually when somebody doubles down that hard, that means they're guilty. I mean, a more reasonable person would have responded, I am sorry that this has come upon the University of Michigan, even though I had no personal involvement in this. Something to that nature. This just makes him sound even more guilty.
Absolutely, absolutely. On another Ohio State note here, moving away from football, but were you following the basketball tournament?
No.
You were not? Okay. Well, this year, the champions of the basketball tournament winning the $1 million prize, Carmen's crew with the win. Jared Sullinger led the way for Carmen's crew. That was awesome. I mean, they won in 2019. They win it again this year. They had some exciting games, and that's where the Elam ending came from. You know, they started with the Elam ending.
That's right. Yeah.
And that it was very interesting. I mean, there was some like bad blood when the Kentucky team and Kentucky alums and Louisville alums played.
Huh.
There was some stuff going on there. So now and we're nearing week 2. We're getting toward the end of the Olympics. Mike, what have you thought? Anything that's really been exciting for you as you've watched this?
Yeah, I loved actually the best event I saw was yesterday's 1500-meter final, where the broadcast showed the rivalry between the England's athlete and I think it was Norway's athlete. And then out of nowhere, the U.S. guy comes and just smokes him at the end. And nobody was expecting that. The whole broadcast, the entire 4 laps, all they were talking about was this bad blood. And then the U.S. gets bronze and gold out of that meet. So I love that. That was great. And as usual, U.S. is winning in all around medals and golds and silvers and bronze. That happens almost every year. So happy to see it. Not surprised by that.
Well, I mean, first of all, today, Katie Moon, who we talked about with the list, our Cleveland native, she won a silver in the pole vault. That wasn't the best moment in pole vault, though. I guess notoriously the Frenchman who, his package got in the way.
You don't need to show that video.
That was fantastic. When I saw that, I died when I saw that. Oh boy, talk about a package check there. Poor Frenchman with the bad pole vault with the pole. Anyway, no, the United States, we've seen some very exciting stuff at the track. The 100 meter that the NBC announcer botched, and then the 400 meter was amazing. Did you see that? I think that was today. Maybe I saw the replay, and the American came back at the end to win that. It was unreal. How about the guy, the shooter from Turkey?
That guy's awesome. I don't even know his whole backstory or anything, but I love the memes that are coming out of that.
Exactly. So that's been impressive. I am interested to see what happens. I know they were talking about the triathlon and the Seine River, and the issues, the conditions with it, and the health and such. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I sure will be curious to see how that all plays out. But I think we've certainly got some more exciting events coming up. As I'm tracking it here, looks like, as you said, the U.S. holds a 2-medal advantage in golds, 27 over to 25 over China, 35 silver medals, and 32 bronze. It appears China is also second in silver with 23. In bronze, as far as I can see, France has 21, but overall 94 gold medals or 94 medals for the United States. Next closest is China at 65. Now let me ask you this before we go to the Going Nuclear segment. Is it fair, when we talk about the medal count, the U.S. sends a lot more athletes than other countries. Therefore, they have an opportunity to win a lot more medals. So let's say someone has athletes that participate in 3 events and they win gold in all 3 events. Are they not better percentage-wise than the United States?
If I were that country, that's how I would sell it for sure.
Absolutely no. So very interesting stuff there, but it has been exciting. And I guess thankfully it's no major issues. From a world perspective of what could be happening, seems like everything's really good, other than the opening ceremonies and all the hubbub with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, and with that, Mike, why don't you tell us what has you going nuclear?
All right. Well, I'll stick with the Olympic theme. I'll make it short. But what about all the athletes that live in the U.S., train in the U.S., go to college in the U.S., and then go compete for some other country that's not the US. Is that in the spirit of the Olympics, or is that not in the spirit of the Olympics? Is this the Heritage Olympics, or is this the Olympics where I live and spend most of my time and do all my training as the country I should represent? I think it is the latter. And a lot of these athletes, well, I'm probably just picking hairs here, but you know, couldn't make the U.S. team, so maybe they're going to a country that they could make a team and then participate in the Olympics. Hard to fault them for that, but you know, I can't say I like it all that much.
Wow. I hadn't thought about that so much, Mike. So that's a really good point. I mean, I had thought about it from the perspective of Joel Embiid is not from the United States. Isn't he from France?
Yeah, and they've been booing him, I guess,
Yes. And
lately.
that makes sense. I don't know why he's not playing. I mean, Tony Parker played for the French.
Yeah.
Wemby's playing for the French. Why wouldn't Embiid? I don't
And
know.
there's these rules that if one of your mom or dad was born in a certain country, you can compete for that
Right.
country.
And that's fine. That's fine. But I'm surprised, and it really puts into question, um, a little bit. It makes you at least have that discussion point of what's more important and where your loyalty lies. And it's fair. I mean, obviously, if you're raising your family and living in another country, you can have divided loyalties or shared loyalties. But um, well, Mike, I'm going to go out here on a non-sports issue that has me going nuclear. So, insurance in general sucks. Okay, everything that happens, especially health insurance, is expensive. You pay out the nose whether you use it or not. Then you go and you use it, and people don't code things correctly at the doctor's office, or the insurance provider wants to fight and say that we're not going to pay for it. This wasn't reasonable, necessary, whatever, not authorized. They give you every excuse possible. Well, my level of frustration with not my current health insurance, it just boileth over. I get this letter in the mail that says, "You owe us money." I'm like, what do I owe you money for? The letter tells me some data service. It gives no explanation. The phone number they give me is to the customer service people, basically. They don't know what's going on because I really need to be talking to the recovery department. Long story short, these morons mishandled a claim, sent me a check because they were saying that they had found out or said that the provider was out of network or they weren't responsible and I should send them money, when in fact the provider had resubmitted the claim properly. They paid it, and then they're like, "Oh, well, we sent you money, so you need to send us money back." I just, how do you not know what one hand, why is it that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing?
Because there's no incentive for them to fix it. Because how much time did you have to waste trying to sort that out?
Exactly, exactly, and they're useless. The fact that you call and you get people who, and this really gets me going and grinds my gears, has me going nuclear. When you call your company and the person on the other end clearly, um, English is not their first language, and I don't know where they're located, but you're trying to tell them something that obviously has you in a tough spot and you need assistance, and they don't understand you, and they're repeating things and they're saying things, and it's just out of control. Out of control. But health insurance has me going nuclear this week. So, Mike, with that, I think we shall call it a close. Lots of exciting things going on next week. Folks, be sure to tune in. We are scheduled to have a couple of special guests next week, and we'll keep it under wraps for now. Just follow on Twitter at egreen4325 and the at Going Nuclear CLE, as well on Twitter for information about the upcoming podcast. Be sure to check out the YouTube page and the YouTube channel and subscribe to at Going Nuclear CLE 2391. Please visit us there. So, Mike, I will wish you a good night. And thank you for your time this evening, as always. And we will look forward to being back with you next week. So, for Mike Rasinski, I'm Ethan Greenberg, and you.